Hi folks, welcome to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Cynthia Deeren. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you'll know that I created this podcast so that founders and CEOs who are exploring going global can learn from people who've already been internationally successful. Today, I'm talking to Lee Hackett, CEO of Bluprint X, which is a company that helps CMOs, CROs and CEOs of mid to large size businesses to grow their revenue using data and technology. Lee has played a really important role in creating and scaling 7 startups in 4 continents over the last 10 years. And several of those companies became market leaders within a couple of years, and then Lee sold them to FTSE 200 organizations and global companies. Lee set up his latest business, Bluprint X, in 2013. Interestingly, though, he hasn't always been an entrepreneur. And before he got into business, Lee was a professional footballer with Wigan Athletic in the UK. Today, Lee and I are going to chat about Bluprint X and how Lee took it global. Lee, welcome to Business Beyond Borders.
Cynthia, great. Really appreciate you having me on. Really looking forward to it.
It's a pleasure. Now, you're joining me from London today, and we're going to be talking international business. But before we get there, because you're on the ground in the UK, I really wanted to ask you about Brexit. So what is the mood in London like this week? And what are people on the street saying?
Brexit, yeah. Look, in a gloomy London at the moment, which I guess everyone would expect. But and I think that's the attitude with Brexit at the moment. I think it's sure that everyone's just sick of it. I think that's the kind of thing that's dragged on far too long. And whether you agree with taking the UK out of the EU or staying in, that kind of thing is now for the average Joe, for a CEO of a business, for large or small, it's kind of whatever. Let's just get on with it. Let's just make it happen, whatever we do. But I think the whole thing was kind of inevitable. With something like this that is so divisive, then you've got the political element of it, as well as the kind of tribal element of it. I think the whole UK, particularly business, just wants to get on with it and make a decision either way, and hopefully we can do that in the next few months.
I know that Brexit's now not happening for several more months, but what kind of impact do you think it'll have on the UK from an international business perspective? And looking around you, as you do business in the UK, what impact has it already had?
Well, look, for me, I think there's 2 levels to this. There's no doubt that businesses have held up investment, whether that's inward investment to the UK, or whether that's UK businesses, investing in their existing business to grow internationally or grow in the UK. There's no doubt about that. But, for me, I think every business needs to think internationally now. So, whether that is, in the UK or the EU or further beyond that into North America or South America or Asia, which is, obviously huge in terms over the next 10 to 15 years. So I think it's just another reason of why businesses should think internationally, because, there's no doubt about it that, the world is changing, business is changing, the opportunity is becoming bigger. The opportunity to take your business internationally is easier for me than it's ever been. So I think there's no doubt about that. There's kind of 2 levels, there's the lack of investment or the slowdown of investment. And I think what we will see once this is sorted out, is we'll see that investment released, no doubt, and we'll be all the better for it. And but also, for me, it's just a message of, if you're a business, you need to be thinking bigger than your current market anyway, because these things won't stop changing.
Lee, I want to take a bit of a different tack now, and this is just because I am fascinated about something that I found out about you, and that is that before you got started in business, you're a professional footballer. I would love to know, how did you make that transition from athlete to entrepreneur, and why? What was the motivation behind that? And what's the story?
Yeah, it's a good story, but I think look, I think the adaptation from an athlete into business was one for me which was really easy. Looking back now, it certainly wasn't deliberate. So, I played football straight from school, went into a professional team, and then finished my career relatively early. But I did absolutely terrible at school, right? So, no academic background at all, zero. I was always going to play football. So for me, it was always a focus of being an athlete and being a football player. So when I moved to, when I come out of contract, I kind of had to get a job. So it was, it was a necessity. So I kind of, stumbled into a sales role. And, the adaptation for me in terms of what I learned when I was an athlete about hard work, about focus, having to be resilient, fit, all of these kind of things that made it much easier for me to excel in business because they're all transferable skills. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back now and joining the dots, then, I'm able to do that. So it allowed me to go into a business environment and progress really quick because I was kind of competing, I was in my early 20s. I was competing with people, twice my age. Back then there was no real young people in management. It was, it was always, 35 plus. Now it's different. And so I was able to move really, really fast. So for me, it was kind of the best grounding I could have in business was to be an athlete and learn all those transferable skills.
And did you learn much in the footballing world about teamwork that you could apply in the business world?
Oh yeah. Oh, phenomenal. And the, resilience in particular, working as a team, transparency, right, was, kind of for me born then because in a locker room, you come off the field and you'd, good or bad, you'd have you'd say what you needed to say in that locker room, and it wasn't pretty. And many of the times, people would tell you what they think of you. You would tell them what you think of them. But after that, you would walk out the room and it would all be forgotten and you were a team again. And, business is like that. And that's where that's definitely where the transparency comes for me. And because I was open for that. And, in my early career, I was seeking that from my managers. I was annoying the hell out of them saying, look, what can I do better? How can I improve? How can I get a promotion? How can I earn more money? And that just allowed me to progress super quick. So, so many lessons.
And I'm wondering, have you been able to apply that sort of sports philosophy and that team philosophy back into the businesses that you've run to coach the business teams that you work with?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny that, the majority of my businesses that I've been involved in until Bluprint X were what I would classify as, fast growth, super growth businesses, which had a lot of high caliber people in them. So, and that was deliberate. So the businesses didn't carry a lot of kind of junior, younger staff. They were all senior individuals, high caliber, highly resilient, high delivery, tremendously difficult to manage because they have all those challenges, but they grew really super quick. And that was kind of my MO. In Bluprint X, completely different. When we devised Bluprint X as a model, or Bluprint at that time, the skills weren't in the marketplace. So I couldn't go out and get experienced people. And what we found in our business, because of the nature of the technology is new, the theory is new, that young people just have a better fit. So, and that's what we've done really well with our relationships with the universities in terms of bringing in young talent and developing them. And that has its own challenges as well, for sure. But it's, from our aim is to build a high performance, environment and transparency, openness, and having a vision and being part of something which is, really important to young people.
You have been on an absolute hell of a journey by the sounds of it. It's super exciting. So that's a great segue to what I wanted to talk to you about next. And you just said that you feel like that it's never been easier for businesses to go international, including for your business. Can you just describe for me, for the benefit of our listeners, what Bluprint X does and why you feel that there's never been a better time to be an international business than now?
Yeah, so first, Bluprint X is a holding company, and but really our target market is, helping CMOs, CMOs, CEOs, or chief revenue officers of mid to large size businesses, and helping them grow revenue through the use of technology. And so our businesses, we were kind of born global, and our market is global. So we were, kind of not forced into it, but there was not a question that it wasn't going to be that way. If you look at, most mid-sized businesses and enterprise level businesses in the sectors that we play in, which is, predominantly technology or financial services, then they have or having a global footprint. So as a business, we need to be there to support them in the use of their technology, because these companies are going through a huge transformation. Mm-hmm. So Bluprint X was effectively born 5 years ago to service that market. So really, it was it wasn't a choice. It was part of the plan from the beginning.
So when you started, you thought we're going to have customers all around the world.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the business was originated in we actually spun out of a university in the north of England in Liverpool. And I'm not kind of proud of this, but we've never actually had a customer in Liverpool, because instantly we targeted a particular market, and the majority of those customers, were international. So they had bases in London or Frankfurt or Zurich, the big cities, if you like, that you would expect to see in Europe.
So talk to me about that. I mean, you're in a university in Liverpool, and yet you're a born global company. What were those early days like? How did you go about getting those early international customers? Just talk me through, what kind of how that happened.
Yeah. So, I think this is the important thing in growing any business, but, particularly if you want to grow internationally, is, you've got to understand your market, and you've got to know where your customers live and how they will buy your services. So in our world, it's dominated by the big technology players, people like Oracle and Salesforce and Adobe. Now, the majority of our customers will go to those companies first to talk about how their technology can help them transform their business. Now, it's a story for another day. It's not the right way to do it, but that's basically what happened. So we knew that our go-to-market strategy had to focus around, actually, our customers were not the end users. Our customers were the technology companies, because ultimately they need us to help the end users make the best out of that technology investment. So it's a kind of symbiotic relationship. So in the early days, it was quite simple. As long we understood that, it was quite simple to go to them, promote ourselves, build up our skill set, and they would bring us into the marketplace. And that continues to happen now. And I think that's a key for anyone who's looking to grow their business, is really understanding how the customer will buy your services, rather than, I'm going to spend millions of dollars on advertising and social media and marketing into the end user. Is there another way that you can enter that market in a much more simple and cost-effective way?
And sometimes I think it's interesting to do that exercise of just saying, let's pretend that we have no money to spend on this, but we have to find a solution on pain of death, and then seeing what actually falls out.
Oh no, for sure. And, there's no doubt about it. Money can be a hindrance, or, the ability to invest in lots of different things can can actually make you lazy and make the wrong decision. So, my MO as a CEO and as an entrepreneur over the last, 5 to 6 businesses that I've been involved in is test and fail really quick. So, and to do that, you do not want to be spending a ton of money. So it is really important that, you do your research, you understand how you're going to go to market, but you're willing to fail super quick.
Yeah. And so how did you research it? Just give me a practical example of how you found out who you were going to sell to and how they wanted to buy in that international space. Were you picking up the phone? Were you going and sitting in front of people and asking them whether they liked the product? What did it actually look like? Yeah,
well, I have a philosophy, Cynthia, on, in terms of, as I said, I'm a bit of a startup junkie now. I've been in, this is my 5th to 6th startup, and I like to operate the startup. So, but I do not like to go too far away from my core competence. So I got involved in Bluprint X because I was using this kind of technology in my previous businesses, in another business that I'd actually developed in the Middle East. And so I kind of knew there was an opportunity there. I was in construction products, which is completely different than, what Bluprint X does. But I'd used the technology to grow that business. I'd seen it was really new. I seen that there wasn't a lot of knowledge on how to use it. There wasn't a lot of skills on how to use it. So when I was looking, I exited that business in Dubai. When I was looking for my next opportunity, I kind of had an inside track. So, and I like to do things that way. I think if you're going to go into a completely different market with no understanding of that market, you're just 10xing the risk. So for me, it was I needed to spend 1 to 2 years in the first 1 to 2 years really working it out before we could really scale it. But I think it was a clear understanding of using the technology, understanding where the opportunity was, and as I said, just lots of trial and error.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how many countries is Bluprint X in today?
So we're currently in 4 countries. So we'll be in the Middle East. We have an office in Zurich, office in the UK, or 2 offices in the UK, and also in Sydney, which is an acquisition that we did April last year. So certainly over the last 2 years, we've grew pretty rapidly. And for a very small business that's only 5 years old, acquisitions and growth and all of those kind of things come with an extra degree of complexity. But that's the opportunity of our market. As I said, we were born global, so it's been planned that way from the beginning.
And why did you pick those particular countries? Because they're not exactly close together, are they?
No. And yeah, so when we did the acquisition in Sydney, we could enter any market, which would be, the obviously ANZ, and then into APAC, and launch into APAC, but North America, which is a bit more competitive. But really, we're looking for the best businesses. So we're on a bit of an acquisition trail as well as organic growth. Again, trying to build a global network. So we're looking for the best businesses. So basically the company RMS, who we bought in Sydney, fantastic operation, fantastic team. So that was really kind of first on the list. So it's not scientific in any way. It's just, where do we have customers? Where do our customers live? And where is the great companies that we can try and bring into our network?
What are the biggest challenges that you've faced as you've done the expansion, as you've gone global, as it were? What's been difficult?
I think for me, if you're a big business and you're doing acquisitions, then, you're normally going to have, there's going to be an integration team and resources. In a small business, you don't have those resources. And so effectively everything falls upon the management team that is in place. So definitely distraction from your core business is the main one. And we suffered from that last year, there's no doubt. When we did the acquisition in Sydney, we almost automatically you get distracted away from your core business. So you have to keep pulling that back. And I guess the other one would be culture. Culture for me is probably the most challenging part of business. because it's about people. So when you're trying to grow a global business, and the kind of stuff that we do for customers is really, really hard. You know, the kind of projects that will deliver, as I said, are transformational. So people's careers are on the line. So if they, you know, spend quite a lot of dollars with us to bring us in to help them take their business through a transformation, if that goes well, then, you know, that's career defining for them both ways. So that adds a lot more pressure. So if you're then doing that at a global level, then you've got to really have a good culture, and you've got to work hard on that. And that isn't easy. And certainly a big learning curve for me.
So give me your top tips on dealing with both of those big challenges. On one hand, the distraction, how did you handle that? And on the other hand, the culture, how have you gone about building the kind of culture that you need to make the business sustainable internationally? Yeah,
so the distraction, I think, is purely just awareness of it, and that it's happening, and also having a management team who can cope with it, and that's crucial. And I think, you know, that's a constant learning, and you know, we lost some of our management team last year purely on that fact that, you know, we had a management team that, you know, in a single lane, really good, but then obviously once you then start to add in these layers of complexity, then it really does make it challenging. So you kind of got to have, you know, the management team, but, you know, the only way to deal with it is awareness and keep pulling it back and keep everyone focused on the vision. And culture is, as I said, it's a really, really tricky one. I think for me, what I'm trying to build in this business, and I think for me is, you know, a big part of my principles, but also I think something that's very important in business is transparency. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you can have a business which is transparent, you know, it talks about the good things as well as the bad things. This adds a lot of challenges because, you know, being transparent comes with huge risks. You know, we're doing another acquisition now. To give you an example, we're doing another acquisition now. It's actually in the UK here. I'm in London at the moment. I'll be meetings on this afternoon. But we're relatively transparent with our business in that acquisition because we want to give the people a kind of heads up that it's coming, both ends. Now that comes with a lot of risk. You know, if I go back 20, 15 years in my career when I was doing acquisitions for a big corporate, I would be fired, you know, if that happened. So, you know, transparency is easy to say, difficult to deliver, but I think it's an absolute necessity if you want to build a healthy business with a really great culture.
Yeah, I really agree with you on that. I think, yeah, I absolutely share your view. Are there favorite books that you've encountered or favorite people who have mentored you or encouraged you or inspired you on the journey? And who or what are those books, people, podcasts, and why have you picked the ones you've picked?
Yeah, so I've not really, mentors has never been a big part of my career. And although I've nicked so many ideas from really good people, I think I've kind of mastered that over the years of being able to learn, you know, particularly other people's mistakes. So I kind of, in my own way, I've had plenty of mentors. But I think from you know, in terms of books, I'm a huge listener to podcasts and books and all of these kind of things. And I think that's, you know, not having a formal education where I left, you know, school and went to university. I've had to become a self-learner, and I think that's one of my strengths. But I definitely, one of the books that has had a huge, profound effect on me over the last few years, and still now, is by a guy called Ray Dalio, Principles, which, you know, I think for me was just a kind of, I think one of the things that you can really get from listening to books or reading books or watching podcasts or going to events, all of these kind of things, which I think are really good, is, you know, you get a reinforcement of your thinking, right? So, you know, and in that book, that really struck a chord for me. And, you know, I've met some people who have read that book and think, don't get it, you know, it's very robotic, not really for me. But for me, you know, it's definitely a profound, you know, effect on me. So if there's one recommendation I've made to anyone is read that. If you're in business and life in general, read that. You're going to get a lot from it. And in terms of podcasts, one of my favorites and has been for a number of years is Joe Rogan. Definitely, someone I enjoy listening to, interesting guests, goes on all over the place. So for me, that's also a big part of my kind of staple podcast week. Fantastic.
We will put those in the show notes so that people can find them. Lee, how can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more about what you do, or, check out your philosophy on doing business, or just generally make contact?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, Instagram. LinkedIn, obviously, you just put in my name and Bluprint X, you're going to find me. Instagram is another channel I've started to use over the last 12 months. So, Lee Hacket, Lee_Hacket, which you'll find me there. But yeah, look, I welcome that opportunity for people to reach out, and share experiences, and so you'll find me on those channels.
Fantastic. And have you got any final thoughts for founders and business owners who are listening to this show and wondering, is going global really for our company? Is this something we should attempt? What would you say?
Yeah, well, I think it brings us back right to the beginning. I think, if you're not thinking about going global, then you need to, because I don't think it's a choice. Now, look, in certain industries, it's not relevant. If you're running a local store or something like that, it's different. But, you can be global going on the web. So that, as I said, everything's now much easier to do. It's never as hard as what people are going to tell you it is. It is tough, of course it is, but it's worth doing. And the opportunity is huge. So I just don't think people have a choice now. I think it's a necessity. It should be part of your business plan, whether it's over the web or whether it's local, or you're, like us, trying to acquire businesses or set up businesses in different countries. And I think, as I said, that will only become, that opportunity will only become bigger. So it's something that you have to do. So that would be my advice is, take the kind of choice off the table and just make it happen.
I think that's some great advice. Lee, it has been great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for being my guest. If you're enjoying the Business Beyond Borders podcast and you're thinking about expanding your company internationally, check out the Deeren & Associates website, deerenassociates.com. Our consulting services, which include market research and modelling, cross-cultural consulting, and strategic business connections, deliver deep insights and create value for larger companies looking to scale internationally. If you're from a smaller organisation that wants to expand its global footprint, take a look at our International Business Accelerator program, which my team and I created to help micro to medium-sized businesses to speed up and de-risk the process of going global. The program helps business owners to build a great strategy without having to reinvent the wheel. It creates the momentum to put the strategy into play, and it helps them to generate or raise the funds that they need to get an international expansion off the ground. We built it especially for founders and CEOs who want to take their business to the next level and wondering where to start. It's structured in a way that's simple to follow. It's digital so that you can take part from anywhere in the world. It's a lot of fun and our members love it. Check it out at deerenassociates.com.